Welcome to Facts TV News, where everything is true. U.S. tourists held up robbed in Portland. Two tourists visiting from the United States were held up and robbed by men armed with knives in Folly Roads in Portland on Monday. The male and female were robbed of cash and other personal items, reporters understand. One of the victims is a commercial fisherman and the other is a student. Both are 25 and are from Alaska. Police reports indicated that the tourists, who were vacationing in Portland, went to Winifred Beach in Ferry Hill in the Parish, and it started raining heavily, so they decided to leave. Both boarded a white car, which appeared to be operating as a taxi destined for Port Antonio. The driver took them to Folly Roads, where they were approached by three masked men armed with knives. The men robbed them of Jamaican and US dollars, cellular phones, debit and credit cards. The robbers fled and the tourists were later helped to a police station where they made a report. Bail granted to man accused of murdering security guard in Hanover. A man who was arrested in connection with the shooting death of a security guard and the injury of another in a car along the Shetwood Main Road in Ramble, Hanover, in June was on Monday offered $1 million bail. Steve McDonald was offered bail in the Hanover Circuit Court following an application by his attorney, Donahue Martin. He was ordered to stay away from Hanover and Westmoreland as a condition of his bail. In the meantime, McDonald's co-accused, Tweety Wright, was remanded. McDonald, 35, of Luntop in Chester Castle, is charged with murder, possession of a prohibited weapon, unauthorized possession of ammunition, and wounded with intent in relation to the murder of 43-year-old Dwayne Barnes, a security guard of Awful Gully, Brickstead in St. James. The attack occurred on July 6. The Lucy police reported that about midday, Barnes was a passenger in a Nissan AD wagon motor car when armed men pounced upon them. It is alleged that McDonald was among the group of men who opened gunfire at the vehicle, killing Barnes and injuring another man. An investigation commenced, and McDonald was arrested and charged following a question and answer session in the presence of his attorney. Prime Minister Andrew Holness blasts politicians who encourage illegal settlements. Prime Minister Andrew Holness has blamed politicians whom he says encourage illegal settlements. He was speaking at the National Social Housing Program handing over ceremony in Clifton Boulevard Lodge, St. Catherine, where several illegal settlements were demolished last year. Mr. Holness said those politicians who encourage illegal settlements are the same persons who call on the government to produce land titles for occupants of those settlements. He said these politicians do not inform citizens truthfully and create problems which have to be fixed by the government. Mr. Holness said his intention is not to raise political ruckus, but to highlight the need to improve the illegal settlements which are across the island. He called on politicians to desist from playing politics with the lives of citizens. Meanwhile, the Prime Minister says the government continues to pursue equity and order in the settlement of lands across the country. He says the recipients of the ceremony are indicative of the equity. One of today's recipients was a young man whose story went viral after she was scammed illegally purchasing property at Bernal Lodge last year. The authorities last year demolished several unfinished structures. Mr. Holness said he does not pay attention to land settlement, there will be disorder in the society. He said while he understands Jamaica's wanting to own land, the country is small and has a fragile ecosystem.
When we allow settlements to occur irregularly, the same people who created the illegal settlement come up on platform and say, how we not get the title yet? How long we have wait on title? The same people who encourage people to come and settle illegally, then turn around and say, where is the road? Where is the water? They don't tell the people them when them settling them illegally that they're not giving them no road, they're not giving them no water, and they're not giving them no title. But yet them come and pontificate. Who must solve it now? Who they turn to? Who has been dealing with those issues? But this Prime Minister. I didn't come here to raise a political ruckus. I did not. Because if we were to talk about legacy and history fits, if we were to go back into legacy and history and talk about Clifton and talk about all the other irregular settlements around Jamaica and what we have done to improve them, it wouldn't look good on the political class. So I beg you, don't play politics with housing. Don't play politics with the people's lives. Because if I were to have continued in the steps of previous prime ministers and previous leaders, what we would be seeing developing is not order. It would be chaos. Somewhere in our development, there must be a line drawn to say there must be order in the society and there must be fairness. And as I stand here today, we have stood up for order and at the same time stood up for fairness, because Shaniel is there as a perfect example of equity in the pursuit of order. I could see the equity issue, like many other Jamaicans who felt that we should knock down our house, regardless of whether or not that house was legally constructed. Because that is the sentiment of many Jamaicans. As your Prime Minister, I also share this sentiment that you have, this abiding sentiment that we must give people opportunity to own them house and a piece of land. I am sympathetic to that. But Jamaica is not a vast country where land is infinite and you can go settle anywhere you want and it doesn't create a problem. Jamaica is a small island with a very fragile ecosystem.
Holness and Jackson square off over proposed boundary shift in Portmore. Prime Minister Andrew Holness and Member of Parliament for St. Catherine South, Fitz Jackson, clashed Tuesday over the government's boundary proposal associated with the establishment of Portmore as Jamaica's 15th parish. Speaking at a handover ceremony in St. Catherine under the new social housing program, Jackson said the amenity boundary shift is a clear attempt at gerrymandering, which he said would leave some citizens without representation once effective. This is a document submitted by the Ministry of Local Government with boundary proposal unilaterally determined, and what that proposal would do is to establish a parish that cuts off parts of two constituencies. Mine is one, and Minister Terrelong represents a part of the area that I represent will have no member of parliament, Jackson said. And what Minister Warmington did say publicly, it will ensure that his party has dominance over those areas, the classical definition of gerrymandering. In 2023, Prime Minister, that's a retrograded step, and I don't want your legacy as Prime Minister to be taunted by that, added Jackson. The MP further took issue with the use of Counties and Parishes Act 1865 as part of the justification for the proposed boundary shifts, described it as an imperialist legislation, not a modern legislation for which all of us would have participated in, stressed Jackson. So, Prime Minister, I want good sense to prevail. The media asked me earlier on, where are the committee members here this morning? Why aren't they here? I said they're probably not here because they have nothing to celebrate this morning, added Jackson. Prime Minister Andrew Holness, who also addressed the gathering at the handing over ceremony, hit back at Jackson, noting that his comments were politically motivated and not necessarily a concern for the citizens. In case you have been convinced by the very sincere presentation of my batchmate, and if I were not someone in the know, I too would be tempted to believe it. As I have pointed out, one of the data, which is so important, is that a large part of the constituency is uninhabitable and probably will be part of that will be removed off and will not affect his vote, stated Holness. Now the challenge, when you are speaking, my dear Fitz, I listen to you carefully. No, it was never my intention to come here to address matters of boundaries and constituencies, because as Ecclesiastic tells us, there is a time and place for everything. It would appear that the real concern is not the improvement of the people's business, but the loss of votes, added Holness. Speaking with reporters following the event, Jackson claimed that the opposition was not consulted in the draft bill that laid out the proposed boundaries at the crux of the squabble. The permanent secretary of the Ministry of Local Government came to Parliament and said some routine matters before the PAA, and I used the opportunity to give some clarification for her as to how they arrived at those boundaries proposal against the background of a public statement made by Minister Warmington, explained Jackson. I was curious to know what advised the boundaries proposal. The permanent secretary went around to indicate in the midst of her answer she mentioned that the EOG was consulted. That struck me because I know that anything that comes to EOG, their modum operandi is to engage the representatives politically on both sides on what is proposed or being contemplated for input. and none never came to me as a member of parliament, nor nobody else in the PNP that I am aware of. In fact, I can say definitely none has come to any in the PNP. I can say that without fear of contradiction, Jackson added. Please remember to subscribe, like, share, and click the notification bell